On June 4, 2025, the president signed off on a sweeping 50% tariff targeting foreign steel and aluminum. Just like that, America's biggest steel supplier, Canada, froze nearly all outgoing rail shipments. Why? Because over time, the US had become its single biggest customer, with more than 90% of Canada's steel exports crossing the southern border. But Washington didn't just hit steel. This tariff sent shockwaves through other sectors too, turning a trade ally into a reluctant gatekeeper. The sticker price of US steel? It shot up from $700 to $900 per ton in a matter of days. Not because of market demand, but because of one signature. That one move forced Canada's steel industry to pivot inward. American automakers, especially in Detroit, felt the shock first. Assembly lines stalled. Robots froze mid-task. And the night shift paychecks? Put on pause. Meanwhile, across the border, Hamilton's blast furnaces came roaring back, lighting up the skyline like a wartime factory. Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, didn't hold back. He slammed the US tariff as an own goal of historic scale and warned Washington that further retaliation was on the table. The first hint? He floated the idea of restricting exports of critical minerals. So how did a tariff designed to protect US industry end up paralyzing it instead? Why is America's oldest ally now rationing steel like it's a wartime commodity? And who's footing the bill? Ottawa, Beijing, or Main Street, USA? Let's break it down. At dawn on June 4th, the tariff decree hit the Federal Register, hours before Beltway commuters even got in their cars. By lunchtime, foreign steel shipments to US ports were slapped with a 50% duty, double the rate set in 2018. The spike was high enough to price half the world's steelmakers out of the market. 12 hours later, phones were ringing off the hook from Cleveland to Monterrey. The message was clear. Any coil that passed customs on Tuesday would lose money by Wednesday. The financial panic hit the futures markets first. On June 5th, steel prices surged. Nuor, a key player, hiked its base quote to $900 per short ton, up $150 in just 2 weeks. For automakers, it was a ticking time bomb. Each pickup truck uses about 1 ton of steel. Multiply that by 1.5 million F-Series units, and Ford was suddenly facing an extra $500 million in raw material costs before the first weld. But the deeper rupture? It came from Canada. Catherine Cobden of the Canadian Steel Producers Association said it plainly. US orders had vanished overnight. Canada usually ships 12 million tons of steel to the US annually. That demand evaporated. Without that supply, Detroit's stamping presses ran dry. Prime Minister Carney immediately called the tariff an own goal and hinted at broader countermeasures. Meanwhile, Canadian steel plants scrambled to reroute exports toward Asia. At the same time, Ford's River Rouge plant idled 2 major production lines due to material shortages. Wall Street took notice. The S&P 500 dropped 0.75% by the close. Traders had a name for it: the Trump session teaser. The irony? A protectionist move meant to save US manufacturing instead outsourced critical supply, shut down production lines, and handed Canada control of the North American steel supply chain. And this was just Act 1. Ford's executive suite didn't need a crystal ball. Back on May 7th, CEO Jim Farley warned that the 50% tariff would saddle the company with an extra $2.5 billion in costs for 2025 alone, enough to wipe out their profit forecast. Even before that, Reuters estimated in March that the tariffs could increase the cost of certain Mexico-built models by up to 25%, adding nearly $2,000 to a mid-size crossover. By April, the price shock hit American dealerships. Showrooms across the country, from San Antonio to Seattle, slapped temporary surcharges on import-heavy trims. Order banks slowed to a crawl. The worst damage, however, showed up in the jobs data. On April 4th, Michigan's unemployment rate spiked to 5.4%, the highest in the country and more than a full percentage point above the national average. The missing piece? Canadian coil. Each F-150 built in Dearborn uses roughly 1 ton of steel. At $900 per ton, River Rouge was burning through six-figure steel bills every 3 minutes. Projected over 1.5 million trucks, the cost topped $1.3 billion, before wages, paint, or even final assembly. Capitol Hill reacted fast. On July 21st, a bipartisan group of senators from the Great Lakes region crossed into Ottawa to urge Prime Minister Carney to ease what they called a metal blockade. But Carney was unmoved, floating instead the idea of export quotas that would further restrict Canadian steel from leaving the country. The result? A tariff wall meant to protect U.S. jobs now risks triggering a repeat of 2008, with no bailout in sight. Carney saw Trump's decree not as a threat, but as a green light. By July 16th, he unveiled a $1 billion Canadian Steel Modernization Fund. The money is already being used to replace coal-fired blast furnaces with electric arc and hydrogen-based systems across Ontario's mill belt. Less than an hour after the fund announcement, Ottawa halved the quota for steel imports from countries without free trade deals. Anything above the cap now faces the same crushing 50% duty. Cheap slab from Turkey or Brazil? Dead on arrival, unless buyers are willing to pay more than even the U.S. tariff would have cost them. And here's why this works. Ontario's electric grid is already 93% emissions-free, powered by hydro and nuclear. That makes Canadian steel production among the greenest in the world, 3 to 4 times cleaner than the global average. That green edge is key. Starting January 1, 2026, the EU will implement the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism (CBAM), taxing imported steel based on its embedded carbon emissions. For Canadian producers, it's a dream scenario. ArcelorMittal Dofasco, the biggest steelmaker in Hamilton, already has shovels in the ground for a direct reduced iron DRI unit that will feed 2 electric arc furnaces. When fully operational, it will cut 5 million tons of emissions per year, while slashing production costs long-term. Meanwhile, Detroit watches from the sidelines. Every ton of steel once sent south is now being rerouted, branded CBAM ready, and fetching premium prices in European markets. U.S. automakers simply can't compete. By the time Detroit's lines return to full speed, Ottawa's clean steel bet may have locked Canada into the EU supply chain, leaving Motor City holding the bill, plus interest. Canada isn't just responding, it's taking charge. On July 22nd, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario signed a new agreement. Any new pipeline, rail, or mineral project must use Canadian melted steel. That homegrown requirement immediately cut U.S. steelmakers out of the bidding process. The American Iron and Steel Institute says Canada exported about 6.56 million tons of steel to the U.S. last year, including more than 1 million tons of pipeline-grade material. That's all staying home now. To add more pressure, Ottawa also slashed import quotas for steel tube and pipe from non-FTA countries. Any shipment above the limit now faces the same 50% duty. American contractors, especially in the oil sector, felt the squeeze instantly. Before this trade war, the U.S. imported about 40% of its oil country tubular goods, heavy-duty pipes used in drilling, from abroad. By March 12th, analysts warned that Canadian and Mexican suppliers still made up 16% of the supply, but with prices expected to rise 15% or more in 2025. The impact? Small drillers in Texas and North Dakota can't secure pipe without paying huge premiums. Midstream projects in the Midwest are stalled. Maintenance crews on Enbridge's pipeline grid are using old spare joints because new ones are stuck in customs limbo. Building new U.S. electric resistance weld ERW mills? That takes years. Rerouting crude by rail? More expensive and riskier. Meanwhile, Alberta claims the fabrication jobs and the political win, framing it all as energy security. In one policy shift and one quota cut, Canada has effectively weaponized its clean power advantage, while U.S. suppliers stare at empty order books and Detroit fights rising rust. As Canada locks down pipeline steel, Europe is setting up its carbon toll gate. Starting in 2026, the EU's CBAM program will charge every ton of imported steel the same carbon price paid by European mills. That price? Projected at $88.95 per ton, tacking nearly $90 onto each short ton that enters Europe. Canada sees a golden opportunity. Back in February, consultancy firm Anthesis told clients that Canada's hydropower and nuclear-heavy grid makes its steel naturally CBAM ready. Meaning, European buyers comparing carbon barcodes will see Canadian steel as clean and US steel as dirty. Trucks that used to roll south to Michigan now head east to Rotterdam, earning more per ton, dodging tariffs, and avoiding carbon taxes. For US households, it gets worse. The Tax Foundation estimates the tariff policies will cost the average American family $1,296 in 2025. That's an entire month of grocery bills. Gone. Detroit's executives are trapped. Pay Europe's carbon toll? Lose the global price war? Stick with old coal-fired mills at home? Get hit with 50% tariffs. Either path shreds what's left of their margins, already thin after the pandemic and chip shortages. The EU offers a way out. Prove your steel is clean enough and skip the border tax. Canadian mills already qualify. US mills, still mostly coal-powered, do not. So the global supply chain does what it always does, follows the cheapest and cleanest route. Trump built a tariff wall to protect US jobs. Brussels built a carbon gate that's redirecting them. And Mark Carney just opened Canada's side door. So here's the question. Should Washington race toward clean steel? Or double down on tariffs and risk getting left behind? Because 50% sounded like a job shield. Instead, it slammed the gate on critical imports, crippled Motor City's factories, and left Canada with a steel monopoly powered by clean energy. Ford is bleeding $2.5 billion. Michigan has lost its top employment spot. Congress is still arguing over who lit the match, while Hamilton's furnaces blaze on through the night. If the EU's CBAM rolls out as planned in 2026, Canadian coal will flow into Antwerp tax-free, while US slab gets hit on both sides of the ocean. The negotiation window is still cracked open, but the clock is ticking. So we ask, will Washington dismantle the tariff time bomb, or watch the world move on without it? What began as a tariff policy has now rippled through factories, rail lines, and port cities from Detroit to Hamilton, from Texas oil fields to the docks of Rotterdam. A single economic shockwave has shifted the balance of North America's steel, manufacturing, and global trade alliances. But this isn't just about raw metal. It's about people. It's about jobs. It's about the neighborhoods built around shift whistles, welding sparks, and hard-earned paychecks, now silenced. Steel isn't just an export. It's the backbone of bridges, buildings, pipelines, and pickup trucks. And right now, it's become a currency of power, a geopolitical lever in a world racing toward carbon neutrality, digital automation, and self-reliant supply chains. While Washington debates tariffs in closed-door hearings and Ottawa modernizes its mills at full throttle, the world keeps turning, and so do trade routes. What once flowed freely between neighbors is now rerouting to new shores. American families? They're paying more at the dealership, at the grocery store, and soon, at the hardware aisle. Canadian workers? They're seeing blast furnaces glow again, not out of nostalgia, but out of necessity. In a world this interconnected, every policy has a passport. So whether you're watching from Michigan, Alberta, Brussels, or Baja, you're part of this story. And what happens next depends not just on government deals, but on whether people demand a smarter, cleaner, more resilient future. Now, if you're someone who believes in exploring the world with open eyes and a curious heart, this channel is for you. We don't just cover the news, we trace the ripple effects across borders. From trade wars to travel bans, from tariffs to tourism, we follow the global currents shaping everyday life. So before you go, hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey. The world is shifting fast, and we're traveling light, asking bold questions and uncovering the stories that matter, beyond headlines and hashtags. And if you found this video insightful, give it a like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share it with someone who needs to understand just how deeply connected this world really is. Because whether you're riding a bullet train in Tokyo or walking a steel bridge in Pittsburgh, we're all standing on the same foundations. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your passport ready, your questions big, and your mind open. We'll see you in the next video.